Let's call a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners to
Order. Today's date's the 5th of November. It's 5:15 p.m. Joanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ernst?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
He's advised he's going to be late tonight.
Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsong? Here. And Commissioner Wright? Here.
Commissioners, before we go any further, for those of you who don't know, I got a phone call this morning from Mr. Koski, who was calling from the emergency room. He said that he was feeling dizzy, and his wife asked him to go get checked out. So his diagnosis was that he's dehydrated, of course, parts, got every degree possible, including a medical degree, so he would know. But fortunately, he was, he wasn't in any discomfort. His doctor wanted to get checked out, so they're going to keep him overnight for observation. So I'm not hoping it's nothing any more serious than dehydration. Commissioners, any changes to the agenda this evening? I would like to make one statement for those in the audience who are interested in item number one, which is the Don Estridge Field issue. We have Brian got a phone call today from a representative of the school district saying that they had figured out an alternative to removing the field and the track. The one consideration that they had was they wanted to adjust the hours on the ILA to give them a little more time to get the students off the campus. Currently, the ILA says that the community takes possession of the property at 5:30, and they want to move it to 6:30. And so I believe Brian got emailed to that effect. So we'll go into further discussion there if anyone has any questions. But for those in the audience who wanted to address that, I just wanted to get that out there so we didn't have to put you through the public podium this evening on public request.
What does that mean?
Pardon?
What does that mean, that the community currently doesn't get access to the field till 5:30?
That's correct.
And so we'll just move it to 6:30?
Correct.
Okay.
I think Brian, you had the conversation. You want to?
I did. The school board, they met today. They met for hours and hours trying to work out ways to respond to some of the public input that occurred over the weekend when this story came out to the news. And they would like to keep the field and the track in place. And they believe that they can do that now. So what they would just need from us is to rework the ILA to change the times.
But don't they need the field and track for a bunch of buildings?
They are working out a different way to put the concrete rules there, is my understanding. I didn't get the
Okay.
details on that because they're still working all that out, but they are really working hard to try to respond to some of the input that they received from this initial plan.
So, until we have something in black and white, Craig, I mean, all we have is a verbal statement from a representative. Was it Ms. Garrison?
Yes, yes.
Ms. Garrison called. At this point, we're under the assumption that the only requirement that they would have is changing the ILA to a 6:30 start time, which should be a minimal impact to the community that uses it. All right. There are no changes to the other changes to the agenda. Next item is public requests, and for those of you who would like to address the commission on areas of concern and interest to you, please take the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Garth Duffgrave, good evening. 5601 Nassau Drive, Boca Raton, 33487. I don't want to breach protocol, perhaps just bruise it gently. But in regards to the information that you've just shared with us, it's very gratifying to us. I was certainly unaware of a lot of the feedback apparently that occurred over the weekend. So again, that's pretty gratifying news in regards to the loss of Don Estridge to the youth rugby program as well as the adults rugby program, and even at times the FAU. We often interact with their rugby program. To that end, and I do understand that things are still in flux right now, but certainly even a 6:30, and this is where it's difficult not to be very grateful for the news, but it still has somewhat of an impact. Our youth program currently runs from 6 to 8 p.m. And if it was old, ugly rugby players like this gentleman on my right over here, we of course wouldn't mind. We would be grateful that we wouldn't have to see them in the darkness. But the point is, for kids, it's a bit of a problem that starts pushing us late into the evening for kids to wrap up. And generally, again, we have a 2-hour practice session twice a week. So this has real implications. And again, I don't mean to be, or even sound vaguely ungrateful, but I'd just like to bring that up. Second point, I did bring some handouts which were kindly distributed. I was remiss in being able to give you the precise measurements of rugby field dimensions. The last time I suffered grievously, lost a lot of sleep about that. That embarrassment was just over the top. I did bring the information this week for you guys to read before napping. If this doesn't put you to sleep, God knows what will. But again, there's some information in there in regards to Patch Reef. If you were to line Patch Reef, we have been in communication with Kevin Beckman of the City Athletic Department and have provided those dimensions. But we would like to again campaign here to have Patch Reef as a potential backup plan or an emergency out plan in the event that we have fixtures that we would like to meet. And for whatever reason, obviously, if Street goes out of action, that's not the step. Again, big news. We'll just be patient and wait. And again, we thank you very much for the support that you've shown us. And we're just extraordinarily grateful. That's great news to us. Thank you very much.
Park, we'll certainly in the negotiations ask about the 6 o'clock time. I mean, if that's a deal killer and means that we have to push it to 6:30, I don't think it'd be. We'd rather have the field half hour less than not have it at all.
No, truly.
Yeah. So we'll certainly do our best. I mean, I don't know what their requirements are, but if there's an option, we'll certainly ask for that.
I know that my colleague would like to just add a few extraordinary words in support of that. But again, thank you very much.
Yes,
Really
sir.
appreciate all your help and support.
I've got extraordinary words. McGrath asked me to speak really for the 2 other rugby communities. Men's team.
Name and address, please.
So my name, John Davenport, 2550 Northwest 49th Street, 33434.
Thank you.
The men's club has been going for 45 years. It has 60 players, it has 500 followers, we have 10 nationalities, very international side. We are very much involved in the start of the youth and high school and the start of FAU. So there's a continuum of rugby, just so you know, for education. Through high school we have into FAU and that parleys into players that come to fly. So it's a total rugby continuum. All very successful. The club's been state champions a number of times, state finalists the last 2 years, we've gone to the nationals. It's a growing interest as a club and is very much integrated with the youth and FAU. Just to give you a broader picture of rugby as a whole in Berkeley. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Hello, Robert Duque, 5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace. Again, no surprise, I'm here to ask about golf, and I'm very happy to see, as I'm sure some of our neighbors are, that we're starting to see some demolition results with some of the buildings there. Some people are, of course, anxious to find out what the timeline is. There's a lot of things that have to be done. At the last joint meeting, there seems to be a sense of urgency, trying to borrow the money and trying to get some dollar amounts, I guess, as far as what the park district is going to ask for the city. And that was several months ago. So I don't know if the sense of urgency is still there or if there's other alternatives. I think that Art had mentioned in the past there might be other borrowing alternatives. But there's a lot of things, obviously, master plan, traffic studies, environmental studies, all these things that I'm sure the city's going to require before you turn any dirt. So just trying to see what the timeline is, including if the property on the northeast corner is going to be purchased or not. Do we have any updates on any of that?
Yeah, Commissioners, if you'll indulge me, I'll give Mr. Duque an update. Mr. Koski spoke to Mayor Singer way so that it enabled us to purchase that home in the northeast corner. He said he was not in favor of the abandonment because he thought someday they might want to put a road across the railroad tracks. It's my understanding that the railroad has advised previously that unless the city was willing to close one of the other crossings, they would not agree to another crossing. So, but the answer that came back was no, we're not abandoning the road, to make a long story short. Secondly, I talked to Mr. Koski about the financing, about the cost of the development. He said that Mr. Wainwright would be have some figures for us sometime later this week. They're narrowing those down. So I know the studies are also underway too, Robert. And I did see a timeline that, when you have plans, they show different lines as to where things will be completed. And without pinning it down to, it did not look like there's, the development would be ready for 2019. So it's going to be into 2020. And I don't want to give you a date there because that could move too. But the consultant for Price Fazio has been showing us some plan options to on that on the east side, and so at this point nothing conclusively has been done. We have something on our agenda tonight under treasurer's report for a consultant to help us between one component of the project, but there is a sense of urgency. Every time I talk to Art, I ask him about the financing because I really want to see us get to the city. And the city has told us they don't want to have another meeting and this on the agenda until we have firm pricing and an amount that we need to consider from them for our loan. So that's kind of where it is. I mean, when I talk to Art, and I'm sure the commissioners are the same way. Anytime I have a chance to talk to him, I'm asking about the project and the development because we want to make sure that we open that up before the city closes the west course, and I think the timing on that's probably going to work out pretty well, I hope.
So is there a plan to have another joint meeting probably and do the official ask for the money, or is this something that Art will take care of?
No, as soon as, first of all, we want to have another joint meeting because there's other things that we want to talk about. But as soon as we get that figure, we're going to have the joint meeting. As the city has said to us, you need that before we want to have a joint meeting. So we're going to get that. And so when that will be, as I said, I talked to Art this morning very early, and he said by the end of the week we should have some figures in the way.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Tom Thayer, 4821 North Dixie Highway in Boca Raton, Florida. A couple things. First, just to follow up on Robert's comments, and I noticed a few comments over the last several weeks about going across the train tracks at Jeffrey. I don't think there's any chance of Boca getting another railroad crossing in Boca unless it goes over the top or underneath. Both would be very expensive and difficult projects. So I think we ought to stop thinking about connecting Jeffrey to anything. And
But we're not thinking about it. I want you to know we're not. we want the road abandoned. So.
maybe Marcy gets the wrong idea. I don't know. Anyway, a couple other topics here real quick. Like the Federation of Homeowners doesn't meet tomorrow. We have a little election that's you may be aware of. And so the Federation meeting will be the following week. And it will be in the Royal Palm Room instead of the Silver Palm Room. Same time, and the mayor will be telling us everything he knows happening in the city of Boca Raton. So you may want to come and enjoy the program on the 13th. But tomorrow, remember to vote. We need some people that are halfway educated, halfway intelligent, to cast an intelligent ballot tomorrow. So if any of you are coming to St. Andrews South to cast your ballot, I'll be there. So what's the other thing? Michael might talk about it, but Veterans Day is going to be totally different this year. And I haven't talked to anybody that is aware of it. And I just came by Spanish River Athletic Complex, and there's actually a banner out there now. So that's a little start. But it will not be at the cemetery on Fourth Avenue where it's been for the last 100 years. It'll be at Spanish River Athletic Complex, otherwise known as DeHorney Park, just like the 4th of July is. And I think it'll be laid out a lot the same way. So it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's gonna go to 11, typically it's gone to 10 in the past. And for veterans, there'll be a complimentary breakfast from 9 to 9:30. And then I think we'll get into the speeches and that sort of thing, so, it's just, it's a different location and,
What day is that? What date? What's the
well,
date?
Sunday, it's
Oh, Sunday.
November 11th, it's always on November 11th, even though the city's gonna take off on Monday, the 12th.
Well, not having been a veteran, Tom, I overlooked that date, but certainly they're deserving to be honored in whatever fashion, so,
Okay.
thank you.
That's it, Bob. We expect to see you someplace.
Okay, you will. I've already voted though, Tom, so. Anyone else?
My name is Harold Chaffee, 6200 Northwest Second Avenue in Boca Raton. Listen, I'm very surprised that Singer would even think about it. It's almost impossible to do to continue Jeffrey across. I mean, does he know that there's two sidings, railroad sidings there, that they park trains there all the time? I mean, it's almost impossible. I don't understand why he said they're doing such a hard nosed thing. Giving you guys such a hard time.
It'll be a topic for our joint meeting, Mr. Chaffee, so,
Well, maybe we can go to the city and ask the city council also why. Ask them.
well, a joint meeting would certainly accomplish the same thing, so, but we totally agree with you, we don't see that.
There's also a transfer station, electrical transfer station that feeds the powers of the railroad.
Yeah.
And that just happens to be in the way. I mean, maybe makes all this stuff just to move it, I guess it's just replanted.
And we report, you decide.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hey, Marcia, you got that down correct?
No.
We're not trying to put anything across the railroad track, okay?
Got it.
I'll close this yes, Greg.
Just a question, on Hatch Reef, I know that we were getting ready to do the RFP. Was that going to include run the lines or tick marks?
Tick marks.
It was.
Yeah, right. And I think the RFP has been released, Greg.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to get it back on our timeline so we can start in early March when the cross is finished and we can finish up on August 11th, God willing. Okay, Commissioners, in your packet are the minutes of our previous board meetings. The first one held October 11th, 2018.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions, discussions, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, passed unanimously. The next item is the regular minutes held October 15th at 5:15.
Move to approve.
Second.
Questions? Any corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously. The first order of business is the Don Estrich Field. And Brianne, is there anything that we need to add to the topic that I didn't already mention?
Something new, we're just waiting to hear back from the district as far as how they want to adjust the IRA.
Okay. At the request of the rugby, who starts at 6, let's see if we can, give up the 30 minutes at 5:30 and have the start time at 6. So, hopefully they'll meet us halfway with that. We've been pretty good partners and we've been pretty willing to have this discussion. So let's see if we can do that and before they bring it back to us as a final.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions on that? Okay. In your packet is a budget amendment that has been furnished by Mr. Timberlake, and I think all of you have read that budget amendment.
Sure, if you will permit me, I can read the title of the record this way, and not on the table for conversation, and then staff is here to give you a brief and meaningful presentation about the backup that would support it.
Okay.
If you have permission, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
This is proposed resolution number 2019-01. It's a resolution of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District of Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 and providing for effective date. So it's on the record, it's on the table, and
motion in front of you to amend the budget. Any questions? Hearing none,
Did you want me to briefly go over, does anybody have any questions about what that is?
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
that's the time now to
Great.
do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we approved the budget last year for 17-18, we put all of the city capital improvement projects in the reserve account. So we're amending the budget, taking that out of the reserve and putting it into the actual line item. That's 1.1 million of this total. The other amount is for the golf course construction at 300,000, and that's a separate line under district capital expenses. And the general government is when we purchased the golf course, we incurred those utility bills. And so that amount is being moved out and into general government, out of capital reserves.
This is last year's budget.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Are there any other questions?
Hearing none, may I call the question? May I have a motion? Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously. Great job. Commissioner, the next item on there is the YMCA presentation. I'm familiar with this. Craig, do you have some knowledge of this? If you do, you want to introduce the speakers?
Well, other than I was on the board of the Y,
Uh-huh.
and I know the Y's mission very well. Like any volunteer group, they're very passionate, and there's a good, I think, passion by our group from a parks perspective, so I think they're always looking for an opportunity to partnership, whether it's the city, whether it's the district. This is a group of volunteers who's interested in partnering. So they, over the past many years, they have been looking for different ways of partnership, and so, you know, Jason has asked me about opportunity. I said, well, you need to come talk to this group. This is an opportunity, if there is one, but it's really, depends when there's the right opportunity and the right fit.
Jason, would you mind just giving your name and address, please?
Sure. Excuse me, my name is Jason Hagensick. I'm the president and CEO of the YMCA of South Palm Beach County, located at 6631 Palmetto Circle South in Boca Raton. Good enough? Craig, thank you very much. You summarized that very well, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Quickly, I'll introduce my colleague, Chris Sapp, who is the executive director of the Peter Blum Family YMCA, which is located here in Boca Raton as well. So several months ago, I had the opportunity to come to a Beach and Parks District meeting, and the topic of conversation that evening was really around ocean stranding, what the city and the community and Beach and Parks wanted to do with that piece of property. Since then, a lot of conversations have come up, most notably the golf course, and this has kind of fallen off a little bit, but as a career YMCA professional and someone that believes in youth development and really the basis of programming, this is important, and I'd just like to kind of plant a seed in your mind as we move forward and future conversations take place. So often, Boca is described as a city within a park, and I'm basing everything tonight on really that concept of doing things the right way, where its quality of life is important to everything that we do. The vision that I've got is in part that our YMCA wants to collaborate with the Beach and Parks on an opportunity, whatever that opportunity might present itself as. We believe that a YMCA space, YMCA presence improves the quality of life and strengthens the foundation of community. So this is really around a resident camp experience, only local, so no sleepover type of an environment, something that we could all be proud of. Our YMCA, and I'll speak specifically to the Peter Blum Family YMCA, we're full. Our preschool program is full, our after-school program is full, our summer day camp program is full. We do have space in aquatics and youth sports because we don't cap out based on licensing or accreditation. So we're always looking for opportunities of how do we grow, how do we expand, how do we impact more people, how do we increase the YMCA's reach and impact in the community. So this is an idea that how we would propose partnering with Beach and Parks to make use of what is the Ocean Strand property. So you're all very familiar with the piece of property. And we're looking at really 5 areas of focus. The social engagement. The property presents a very unique opportunity around adventure sports and recreation, arts, and then educational enrichment. Not too fast. So as we break that down, you know, if I understand correctly, and that's a reach on how much I actually understand of the property. But there is the intercoastal access, there is the ocean as well, and if we have any issues with A1A like Jeffrey, we can just do a zip line across. Just kidding, Jeffrey, that wouldn't be a good idea. Maybe a wet willy slide, we'll talk about that. So there is the intercoastal access, there's quite a bit of space, and there's the ocean. So it's a unique piece of property, as you're all very aware. It would make a tremendous location for a YMCA program space. And as we get into it, what do I need? I need shade, shelter, and restrooms. So if I'm looking at after school or specifically summer camp, just those summer months is really the ideal scenario for me on the maximum usage. I need to be able to get the kids in the shade. I need to give them shelter during a storm. They have to have access to restrooms. But there's any number of things you can do with the space. An amphitheater, so the camp environment, the camp rallies. This could potentially be used for any kind of community benefit, even church services, if any denomination that desires it. This thing jumps on me. So again, the performing arts. And with kids, it's focused on that summer learning loss. It's focused on the school readiness. It's focused on character values. So what we could do with the property is pretty unlimited. You know, don't get too caught up on the renderings or the pictures, because there's just too many things that this is telling me that I got to be at the Beach and Parks District meeting. So there's unlimited possibilities for the property. We want to get kids there for day usage, where it's arts, education, outdoor enrichment, sports, activities, physical play, environmental education, active play. We have a tremendous program here in the Sugar Sand Park, but there'd be no reason that we couldn't do something similar in the Ocean Strand property. High ropes courses, low ropes courses, climbing walls, the ability to do archery and do segmented spaces for programming. The intercoastal access, you know, the Lake Wyman, tremendous opportunity to use it for any number of activities. Certainly the water sports. There's all kinds of creative things you can do around play features, incorporating water, with its obstacle courses, canoeing, paddleboarding, stand-up paddleboarding, surfing on the actual ocean side. And then there is the opportunity to be creative around how we use it when kids are not present, or during the non-summer or non-peak usage, because if you invest in the property, you don't want to see it go dormant at any time of year when you don't have to, because it is a spectacular piece of property depending on the usage. So the YMCA's ability to program it minimal, to where it's little impact or as little as possible on the neighboring neighborhoods, would be important to us, because being a good neighbor is important to the YMCA. So the ability to do yoga or fitness in a box, there's all kinds of stuff. You can do this around shipping containers, with spin classes, with the high impact performance training, and then you just close them up and you move on until the next class is offered. There's also the field sports, the ability to do soccer, flag football, rugby. I've heard rugby's out there. So, you know, really, we believe that Ocean Strand, if used properly, would be a benefit not only to the YMCA, but to the beach and parks and to the overall community of Boca Raton. When we talk about a city within a park, this is a first-class YMCA within the city park. So I'd be happy to answer. I mean, I don't have any kind of full proposal for the committee to consider. I'm here to say that if you're interested in exploring this opportunity with our YMCA, we'd love to have that opportunity as well. You know, if there's anything that we could do to make use of Ocean Strand in a responsible way that would benefit both the Y, the city, the beach and parks, and the neighboring community, we think it's worth exploring. So I'll stop there and answer any questions that you have.
Questions, Commissioner? Steve?
First of all, I have to say, anything that helps kids, I'm all for it. I think you guys have done a hell of a job, really.
It's all Chris and I, everybody else, no.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Craig, the former
Credit
board
where
member,
credit
yeah.
is due.
We were so glad to get rid of him.
Thanks a
I've
lot.
heard that. But my first concern right now is because financially we're stretched so thin, is where the dollars for this development will come from. I think this is a great idea, but it's, you know, everything unfortunately has got to be paid for one way or another, so.
So that's really why I'm saying it's exploring. Marcy, I wouldn't want you to say that there's a YMCA being built in the community. It is simply, the request is to explore, see what it costs, see what the feasibility is, to see what impact it would have on the neighbors. Again, we're not trying to upset anybody, we're trying to do our part in improving the quality of life in the neighborhood, or the community in general. So this would be, we'd have to explore all of those things. And Beach and Parks might say timeout, we can't do it. The YMCA might say timeout, we can't do it. So it's just trying to figure out how we get it done. This is step one of a long process.
Have you spoken to the neighbors
No,
at all?
no, this is the first conversation I've had with you.
That might be a place to start before we start doing planning,
Sure.
because they had some ideas of their.
Well, and I think if the Beach and Parks District is not interested in a collaborative relationship around Ocean Strand, then we wouldn't even go any further with it. So this would be this is really just my idea of kind of like, if you're interested and wants to explore it further, then we'll start to do that homework, hopefully with you, hopefully in partnership with you, to say this is of interest to both organizations and see where it takes us.
My kids benefited so much from the from the sports and aftercare.
I can tell you that the similar YMCA properties across the country, one most notably is Camp Surf down in San Diego County in San Diego, California. These are spectacular. I mean, they're booked solid for months, if not years in advance, because they are so unique, and they drive interest. Is the best thing I can say. Karen, you had a question, I think?
No, I'm just gonna say, I like the idea of having something for the Y, like for summertime, because that's when kind of stuff slows down outside for kind of everybody else, but the kids are outside. The only thing about Ocean Strand, though, I would be concerned with is the space and like parking and parents having to come and pick up their kids and stuff like that.
So there's ways that we could address that, and specifically with Peter Blum, there's a possibility of making it where the parking would be limited. Now that does not address some of the other usage, potentially like a playing fields for rugby or soccer or anything of the sort. For us, and don't quote me on this today, but we could transport by bus. It could be that they drop off at the Peter Blum Family YMCA, they pick up at the Peter Blum Family YMCA, and we just take them by bus there. So I would need a turning basin, small number of parking spots for the YMCA usage, but it would not be a heavy impact on parking for the Y. Now, if parking was not an issue, and we could do a reasonable sized parking lot, that would only add value to the property and the project. So I'm not saying parking is not important. Parking is very important. But if the requirement from the neighbors is that we don't want a lot of traffic and we don't want a lot of cars, we can work within those parameters as I stand here today.
I'm thinking of people who live east, like myself. It's harder to get to the Y out west, where if this is available for people out east, there would have to be something that would be worked out for people who live east versus who live west, you know what I mean?
I'm not sure I follow that exactly. So from utilizing this.
Like people who live east don't necessarily go to the Y because
Right.
it's out west.
Right.
So if we wanted to utilize this program, we wouldn't want to drop our kids out west if it was east.
Right,
You know
okay,
what I
that
mean?
makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the good thing is that parents, when they're dropping kids off for summer camp, they're not staying.
Right.
It's a,
Right.
you know, they drop them off, they drive away, they pick them up, they drive away type thing.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of ways to address the challenges that would face a property like this.
Mhm. So you think the property is big enough for something?
My
that would
understanding is
fit?
around 17 acres,
Mhm.
which would make it more than large enough. It all depends on how you carve out the various pieces, because
Right.
for us, the primary usage would be for summer day camp, that experience.
Mhm.
So as much of the features, because everything's gonna be an experiential learning for kids during the summer. So a ropes course, you might think, hey, it's just fun, but no, it's teaching kids valuable lessons during the summer. Paddleboarding, the canoeing, I don't even know what listen, I'm from Texas. My accent's not nearly as sexy as these guys. But, you know, the whole idea of critters in the water scares me. So, you know, that would be something that we would have to make sure that we explore and first and foremost is the safety of the kids is number one priority for us. So everything that we would do would be around teaching the kids valuable lessons during the summer where they're not just sitting around playing an iPad. And it's no longer as simple, 50, 60 years ago, you threw a basketball on an open court and kids would play. It's not that easy anymore. It's much more difficult to program youth activities. You gotta be creative. This is creative.
Great.
A couple of questions. First is, I thought it was very good. First time I've seen it.
Yeah.
But how do you handle from Y being far east, not having the full facilities? Can you describe a little bit more how you engage the community? And mind you, the community, as I recall from previous reading and understanding, they're only interested in something very passive. So that means no basketball courts with lights, no, full-time 24-hour fitness, a lot of different. What is your thought on that?
So most of this does not require tremendous physical structure. And even the stuff that would be built out is it's going to be more environmentally appealing. So to the neighbors, I would still say we can work with them to where we keep a lot of the greenery, where the quality of their backyard, their play area looks good, and it's a very appealing piece of property. I'm not putting a 60,000 square foot YMCA there. If you'd like us to, we could do that. If that was, the great thing about the Y is if you want us to keep it small and compact, there's models and we can achieve that. If you want us to go 200+ thousand square feet, we can do that as well. All we have to do is figure out how to make it work. So to the neighbors, it would be, I think, at some point that property, it's a shame that it's going underutilized. Absolutely a shame. So I'm saying is that we can limit the utilization, focus more on children, and I know there's some balance, but the balance would be small scale. It's not that it's going to be open from 6 o'clock in the morning until 9:30 at night, and there's going to be 20,000 adults that are going through using it for wellness, or there's a pool. There will be noise. That's a good thing where I come from. There will be activity. That's a good thing where I come from. There will be a lot of utilization from children and families, so that's a good thing for me. To me, that's quality of life, and that's using the property as best possible. So is every single person going to be jumping up for joy that this is even being considered? No, not even close. But I'm confident that this is likely the best thing the neighbors could get in a project. It's going to be the least invasive and least impactful and keep this beautiful natural area with a reasonable impact. So the Aeronasium, I have to make this work. I have to have shade, because it's hot and sunny here during summer. I have to have shelter, because when the storm comes in, you don't know it. I got to get kids into shelter. It doesn't have to be enclosed walls. It can be fencing, because I want the security issue as well. And then I need restrooms, because they would be out there, arguably they'd be out there from 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or if it was a full day here, they'd be dropping off sometime around 6:30 in the morning and picked up around 6:30 at night.
I just want to frame this in the proper perspective, because this is not too far off of what EDSA showed us in their waterfront master plan. But this property was purchased and cobbled together at a cost of about $18 million. And the reason it's been sitting there land banked is because we didn't have the money to develop it. But there were other needs that we had in the community that we had to develop. So I don't want you to think we've ignored this property, because we haven't. It's been sitting there like a friendly sister or brother that waiting for development. And we always seem to get pulled off on other areas and hadn't had any better ideas, quite honestly, other than a floral garden that was one. We've been through different concepts. I think this has probably come closer to what we might envision on that property. And I think to go forward with any type of further discussion, it's probably going to involve opening this up to see what the public wants and having either a charrette or some other forum to decide how we want to develop it. And being sensitive to the neighbors too, as Susie said. But I'm like you, I think children laughing and playing is the most beautiful sound in the world. And we have a lot of that in our parks today. And somebody had your hand up here?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so it would be utilized for the summer camp for the summer, and then it would be open to the public for.
So I think that would all come down into what the understanding and agreement between Beach and Parks and the YMCA and any other entities that are involved in it, whether it's Parks and Recreation, whether it's a rugby program. So I would say that any kind of statement I made tonight would be premature. So there's any number of things. If I do yoga in the park, I could do that year round. If I did a spin class on a shipping container, I could do that year round. We could do youth sports year round, Saturdays and Sundays. You can do adult sports year round. So it all comes in who's part of the project, and go from
I
there.
guess I'm more
From
thinking
me,
about kids and security issues and things like that as well.
yeah, and that would be extremely important to us, Aaron. And that would be one of the things that we'd have to explore and figure out. I can tell you there's a YMCA on the West Coast, the Sperlino YMCA in Tampa. It's got 2 of the Aeronasiums, and they're building a brand new YMCA, full facility YMCA on the property. But until that is done, for years it has been 2 Aeronasiums and soccer fields. That was the one. And they would do after school, so they would bus kids there for after school, and then they would do summer camp. And it's a tremendously popular program. So that's a minimum. There's no archery, there's no zip lines, there's no climbing walls. But I think for this property, Ocean Strand, you've got the ocean, you've got the intercoastal, you've got all kinds of opportunities to do some really creative stuff, which Boca deserves.
I maybe out the line by asking, but where does the YMCA get its financing?
So most of our revenue comes from member and program participant fees. We get about 10% from contributed support and grants. So if you look at our Y Bikes program, which is teaching kids how to ride bicycles, that's funded by the University of Florida Safe Routes to School program, our Safety Around Water. So it's a drowning prevention program. We get a large percentage of that, almost $100,000 comes from Impact 100, started it. Florida Blue wrote us a grant last year. So, and then the neighbors, we're in our annual campaign right now. So we do $561,000 is our goal right now through December 6th to raise to provide scholarship assistance and program assistance to children and families in need. Members pay a membership fee. You pay to be part of our preschool, after school, summer camp, swim lessons, sports, but we don't turn anybody away based on their inability to pay. So we'll provide financial assistance to anybody who needs it because we get contributed support from neighbors in the community.
Do you see any opportunity for grants for a project like this?
There's the potential. The problem with Boca, certainly on A1A, is you're going to have a really hard time demonstrating financial need. So I think our biggest opportunity would be to come up with a unique vision that we can go out to the community, to those in this room and the neighbors, to say, this is deserving of your support, let's build it together. That's the best opportunity.
Right.
Well, a couple thoughts. One, being part of the Y, I've led that annual campaign, and one thing I will say is, as far as funding, we run that campaign. When I was involved with it, I'm no longer on the Y board, but when I was there, all the funding that was used would go back to kids in need, but we wouldn't know who it was. So as a coach, you'd never know who any of this. And that's kind of the beauty of it.
That's important to us, right?
Very important. It's a core value. But I guess I come back to one of the best things we have in our community is the volunteer organizations, whether it's SABRE, whether it's rugby, whatever it is. When you have a volunteer group engaged, they really kind of make it work, and they have that extra passion. So the opportunity to fund or help them with resources, whether it's a park or whatever it is, it's a good thing. Lacrosse, all those things. So my experience with the Y has been very good. I would tell you that the other advantage is, as my employer, NCCI, does utilize the Y for its daycare and fitness, and the thought logic of why we did that was all around the liability. So we didn't want to get into the daycare business or a fitness center, and the Y is an entity that staffs it. So it's good having a partner with, what should I say, training and organization in depth. So it's not just the local person, they have a whole depth of organization. That's why I like them. Now, are there other organizations that you can do this? Absolutely. Maybe it's JCC, I don't know. There's others out there that can do similar things, but I think, to me, what's more important is it's kind of getting Ocean Strand, I do believe it's worthwhile to open up. And it's a shame to leave it closed for such a long time, even on a just passive use, I think it would be a good thing.
Yeah, let me try to wrap this up if I can, is that, I think Susie, and maybe Aaron expressed a concern about, limiting access to the members of the public, because of the camp going on. In the summertime, it probably wouldn't be that interrupted. But you're talking about, like a public-private partnership is what you're, I guess, would I say that correctly, Sam? Would you think that's how we would do that?
That is a correct assessment.
Yeah, and so,
Let's say.
and I think we probably would need to explore, other options. I mean, I think that it's an excellent opportunity for us to open up the park in some fashion. But I think we have some homework to do to do that. And if the board wants to continue this discussion, certainly, I have no opposition to learning more about how we might get this done, and if there's any other organization that might want to do it. Usually in a public-private partnership too, there's revenue that's generated that may flow back to us. And if we're going to put up structures there, of some sort, that might be something that we need some capital cost coming back to us. So those are things we need to think about. But if you'd like to continue this discussion, certainly we'll do that. We don't have anything in our budget this year for doing anything more than just cutting the grass over there at Ocean Strand. And with our budget being the way it is too, I think we're pretty skinny this year right now.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to be done this year. I mean, it's a concept that we could explore and take it to the next level if everybody's in agreement. Aaron, what's your thought?
I think it's definitely worth exploring, for sure.
All right. So,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Jason, I think it's the concept has a lot of merit. I think to us, I think it'd be a matter of how we would put the partnership together and
Sure.
how the community would still have access to that, because the community dollars pay for the park, and we want once we get it up, we want their ability. But maybe there's some way that we could collaborate and have the best of both worlds.
What is the best way for us to move forward as a landscape? Who, on the Beach and Park Committee, who should we work with to make sure that we're connected to the right people with the neighborhood association? And what is if the committee's open to exploring it and the why is open to exploring it, where do we go from there?
Well, without any type of commitment, I want to be sure that we're just exploring.
That's all, that's the truth. Same is true for us as well.
Yeah, our staff person, Brandon Harms, would be the best person to contact to work through and keep us up to date. As I said, I think it has a lot of merit to the plan that you talked about. The fact that it would be used, especially in the summertime when the kids are out of school. I like the idea of them having access to the intercoastal. We've talked about kayaking and those kind of things on the intercoastal.
No alligator wrestling.
There's only sharks. But I think that if you'll work with Brienne and knowing that there's nothing in our budget this year unless some benefactor drops a couple mil on us, we're pretty well set for our budget for this year. But certainly, if you have any thoughts about how you might capitalize portions of this project too, that would be of interest to us as well.
Perfect.
Okay. Commissioners, everybody satisfied with that? Okay.
Thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, the next item on the agenda is Patrick Park and the tennis courts. Alyssa, I'll turn this over to you.
Just, so a quick update there, what was approved last time was paint one court, that had to be scheduled in, so that's not been done yet, it's supposed to be done this week. They could not give us the exact date because they're building other courts and doing things with construction. They couldn't give us the exact date, but I confirmed the end of last week that they would be out there this week to paint court 9. so we could figure out whether that would indeed absorb the sand and put a temporary, solution to the problem that we've developed out there right now with this potential for slippage and stuff like that due to the sand issue. So that's moving forward there. The other initiative we had was to go forward with some testing to see if we could get a third party to give us recommendations as to whether a full membrane versus a complete renovation was the route to go. I provided 2 quotes for you today. There's a big difference between these 2 quotes. The challenge I had was calling around and finding a company that would actually give that recommendation at the end of it all. Because we had a number of companies, there was 3 other companies besides these 2 that I talked to, but they would offer no more than what GFA International was, which they would not tell us at the end of this whether they would recommend a membrane versus a full lino or not. They would simply tell us the condition of our infrastructure. And that's what JFA International offered, and that's what their code involves. So what they're saying they'll do is they'll go in and they'll take a look at it, they'll tell us the condition of the asphalt and whether that substructure is, what the subbase, what the condition of it is in, based on the testing and stuff they give us, whether the asphalt's crumbling, etc. So that is what GFA International is offering. I inquired to them as at the end of that, would they take those test results and make a recommendation to us as membrane versus rebuild, and they said that was not something that they offered. So Geosyntec is a company that does do that, and I will say that was not uncommon. The 3 other companies, and I'm waiting for a quote back from one of them, either just for the testing, gave me the same answer, that was not something they offered. They would do the testing, but they would not offer their recommendation of which one to have. So I can continue to look for more. Geosyntec was one that I consulted with that said, yes, they would do that, and that they provided in the quote that they will go out. They've already actually gone out and looked at the tennis courts as part of providing the quote courts, and did a walk around of them, and said that they would do a complete evaluation at the end, that they would give us a recommendation as to whether they thought the membrane would work or not work. I'm not asking you guys to make this decision tonight. What I'm asking you to say is in which direction do you want me to go forward? What I would like to get out of this is what's going to make you the most comfortable in making the decision versus the membrane versus a total reno.
You're aware that Michelle Peel is an employee of Geosyntec?
I was not.
She's an owner.
She and her husband, I
Well, the good news for you is I had no idea of that, so
Okay.
easy. I just got them off the internet.
Okay. Jake, would that present a problem for us?
I'm still saying,
Same.
All right, Mike, wait, hold on. Steve. All right.
He has more hair than me, actually.
I'm sorry?
He has more hair than me.
Well, he has more hair than me too. But would this represent a problem?
I need to know more of the facts with regard to the relationship.
Michelle Peel is president of Friends of Gumbo Limbo, okay? And we spend money to operate and maintain Gumbo Limbo. And being principals of Geosyntec, Michelle and her husband, would this represent a conflict of interest?
It depends. It depends upon the relationship that she has with the Gumbo Limbo Association. I mean, she could theoretically resign that position and create yourself in a relationship that might be an appearance of a conflict. I don't know the answer to that without getting into more of the facts specifically, but to the extent that she's a principal and owner in the business, I would be mindful of the relationship and would look more deeply into Shepherd and Charles if there's any potential violation or potential appearance of a conflict. I don't know that there would be.
That's my concern.
She's a volunteer with an organization.
She's a volunteer. They do supply funding and volunteers for Gumbo Limbo in running the site. Their volunteers are in a gift shop. They do various tasks with regard to maintaining certain projects that are going on. So my concern isn't for the quality of the work that Geosyntec would do, or whether they would give us a fair and equitable rate, because I'm confident that they would. I just don't want this to come back to us or to Geosyntec as an issue where, well, hey, you know, there's too close a relationship there. You know, is there more there than meets the eye?
Could I just suggest, Brian and Sam, that you two talk together to explore that relationship? I've read the statute of conflict of interest. I don't know that it fits that category, but certainly something to be wary of. But the other question I had was, if you will do that, that'll answer Steve's question, for sure, because, I mean, her bid was a low bid, I believe, over the other one. GFA, what, was it higher?
Yes,
Was it-
but it's two different services that are offered.
What, was GFA the one that would want to drill 34 holes?
Yes, and that would be very intrusive, because when they drill these holes, they're about a 1 foot by 1 foot impact on the core. And both companies made sure that we were aware of this, and they would have to go back and patch the surface, and it would not be the same surface as there now. So until such time that we made the decision to do a membrane and rebuild the courts, you would have that patch on top of the courts.
Well, you said GFA is not going to give us their opinion anyway, so what's the point in having them do it if they're not going to give us their opinion?
Well, you said, are either one of them going to give an opinion?
Geosyntec would.
Geosyntec.
Yes.
Well, I think we should explore the conflict of interest and make a decision from
I have
there.
a question, does the city staff have any experience in terms of tennis courts and?
I've worked directly with them on
Okay.
this. I'm working with an architect engineer with the city, on this project.
Do
It's
they
Step and
have an
Step.
opinion on it, or?
We're Step and Step, he's right there with me. I've sent him these 2 proposals to review. I met with him last week.
Mhm.
Dragan is his name, he's with municipalities. And he and I are Step and Step. We've been out to courts together.
Mhm.
We're wanting to go out and watch the court when they paint one this week, so he's been side by side with me, and we're in agreement right now with it.
Okay.
So Melissa, we've already moved forward with the authorization to paint the court to see if that will solve
Yes,
the
sir.
problem.
Court number 9 will be painted this week to see if that'll give a temporary. And then the question will come back is if we do it and it makes a big effort, the question, I mean, if it makes a big difference and solves an issue, the question will then be, do we go ahead and pay for the rest of the course, which to be done, which I believe was around $60,000 for that temporary fix, or do we make this decision in time to just say, we want to go with this decision, with whatever decision to redo the courts?
Well, I can tell you we don't have $800,000 to redo the courts. So I think we're gonna have to look at the remedial efforts to target this. And I think having, testing out the paint is a good idea. And before we redo it, go any further with that fiberglass membrane you were talking about, I think we probably would do this, because they were talking about what was the cost to do that?
The fiberglass membrane,
Yeah.
150 to 160, as compared to
Okay.
basically 900 to $1 million.
Yeah. Well, I think that if we test out the paint and that's effective, I don't know, what's the, is that something just gonna get us through the tennis season? Is that what I was already saying?
Yes, so it would just get us through the tennis season. That's why ideally we wouldn't have to do that. The challenge that we had is I just wanted to do something to show them we were moving forward with a temporary fix, and we couldn't decide whether we're gonna renovate or remembrane those in the amount of time when we need to do it.
Okay.
I will tell you, Geosyntec, when they went out and did that first walkthrough on their own, just to be able to come up with a quote, reported back to me that they didn't see anything around the outsides of the tennis courts or anything, that they couldn't think that this was not a huge problem that we're having. Courts 1 through 8 are in good, in good condition. I know courts 1, I have some pictures and stuff, but courts 1 and 4 have some cracks in them. And then, but courts 9 through 16 are the ones that are really bad shape, and especially courts 13, 14, 15, and 16. They have some long cracks that when you talk to tennis people in the tennis industry, they'll tell you see a spider crack on the top. That's probably just a surface cracks, and they're not as concerned about that. That's things that resurfacing can handle. When they see infrastructure cracks, they're more of a straight line crack, and those are the ones they're not absolutely infrastructure, but those are the ones that have the characteristics more of infrastructure issues. And there's quite a bit of that on courts 13, 14, 15, and 16.
Chair, if I could quickly offer.
Yes, sir.
Listening through the conversation, if Geosyntec is a company which you'd like to look at as a viable option, I'm not legally concerned at the moment, or at least I kept it preliminary with the situation. I don't believe it's a conflicting contractual relationship or a potential voting issue. If Mrs. Beal, right? She's volunteer with her husband and family, whether it be in and of itself does not create a conflict. She's not a voting member of this board or the other board for that matter. We have a good relationship with the Ethics Commission in Tallahassee. They do provide informal assistance to people like myself and others to public bodies. We can no doubt make that inquiry tomorrow. My first impression is hearing through some of the facts are that I'm not getting an uncomfortable feeling that there's a prospective conflict, legal conflict there's under chapter 112, and 112, 313, there's no misuse of public office or use of public funds. Certainly there's an option issue. If it's the right bidder for the right option, for the right destination funds, for the right project, we'll look at it very carefully and give you more best and see if that's what we can get done.
Good. It seems to me that, get this response back and get that subject cleared up. And then this would be a repair that we could make at the end of the season, with the fiberglass covering that wasn't, or we could consider doing it now. But I think the first thing is to see how this paint job will work, because to put that coating down that we were talking about would take the courts out of service for how long?
I don't have that information with me right now. I want to say that was 9 weeks
Yeah. Is that
for the membrane.
For the membrane, okay. So I don't think we're going to do the membrane during the middle of the season, so it might be
I
smart.
think March is when Leslie had talked about was the best time, but we can follow up with that. I think that's when she said that would be the best time.
Okay, well, we're not going to do anything with Geosyntec today until we get a response. And by that time, we probably have an indication on whether the paint will actually, do you know when they're going to put the paint down?
This week.
This week. And how long do we need to wait before we see if that's going to work?
I don't know, I mean, I think Leslie and them could tell us pretty quick right off the bat whether they're having to, it's worse when it rains, it'd probably be nice to go through a rain, make sure we have a rain hit it so we can see what's after, but otherwise we should be able to tell pretty quickly, because those courts they're blowing them at least once and not twice a day out there, so it's a pretty big issue, so we should be able to tell the difference pretty quickly.
Okay, and it probably would be helpful to know about the subsurface anyway, with the work that Geosyntec would do, so maybe that we want to do both, so that in March we'll know what we have to do. If we can put down membrane, we can do that. Considerably less cost than redoing courts. Anybody have a suggestion? You want to go with that plan?
Should we wait until we get Mr. Gordon's?
Yes, oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. As soon as Mr. Gordon has come back to us, I mean, we will not be making a decision on this Geosyntec tonight until we get a response back. We can do that at the next meeting, I would think.
And I will confer with staff and get a better feel on some of the facts, but I'm not going to defend it legally in the context of what may be the case, and I want to give you the comfort level that there's no such conflict. When the appearance of a violation of 112
Thank you, sir.
Meanwhile, between now and then, what I'll do is I haven't had success, so if anybody else knows anybody, but I will also continue to call around companies and see if I can find another one that would give them a recommendation at the end. But like I said, 3 other ones as well as GFA would not. So.
I think you found the right solution with Geosyntec, was that there's no conflict over here. Sounds like the option to go. All right, so we'll leave that in.
We'll bring it back for the next meeting.
Yes, please. While we're talking about tennis, I just want to mention to everybody, because I heard a rumor that's being started that we're negotiating with Nadal right now, and we're not. I don't know where that came from, but there's someone out there that's spreading that malicious gossip, because we've been through that already, and I have I've been the chairman for the past year, and outside of the discussion that we've had previously, I've had no contact with this group. So I want to put that rumor to rest, so that there's no blowback here. And if anybody has any contact with the tennis courts, if you can assure them that we don't operate in the dark like that. We're transparent, and if there's some discussion, I'll be the first one to let you know. I've had no contact with them at all since that first meeting, and don't intend to. So, with that said, we'll move on to item number 5, which is the Science Exploring, the animation land exhibit. Bree, you want to touch base on that?
Commissioners, in your packet is the information on the exhibit that the Science Exploring would like to have here for fall of 2019. It's animation land, it fits the targeted age group. It also incorporates STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. They can definitely program around this for field trips, and it will be, I think, highly sought after during that fall back to school time. Cost of the exhibit is $50,000. As far as shipping goes, it's probably going to be coming out April. So so the shipping will be a little bit less, they don't have the exact cost, and so they know for sure they'll probably run 3,000.
Okay. And there is insurance that's required on that by the contract, so that would be an additional expense also to cover the exhibit, for the property and also the liability. That shouldn't be a significant amount. Anybody have any further questions of Brianne? Greg?
Just a general question. So I love the exhibits. So we're already picking them from are great. How long do they typically stay? And it seems to be usually 35, 45, 50,000. Is that?
That's about the typical, we've spent up to 120 before, but they've been targeting that price range right now.
Is it, but do they stay there for half a year or how long?
They stay there for the season. They used to, I think in the summer, we don't do travel because the open was being used still. So there's 2 per year. And they stay for that.
36 months approximately.
Yeah, there was a timeline in the,
September 1st to January 5th
Right.
on this one.
Oh, okay.
There's a fall and a spring, and then the summer is nothing because they use that for the camps.
they've been very well received. I mean, the city staff selects those, and they've always been, I think, over the 24 years I've been doing this, I think we've rejected one.
They always come out nice. I'm
Yeah, so
impressed.
they always do, and they're always age appropriate for
Yeah.
kids, so I think that, whoever's doing it's doing a nice job for us. So, any other, things you have any other? Okay. If there's no further questions, I need a motion to approve.
So move.
Second. Mr. Ernst, second, that beat you, Sue.
That wasn't easy.
So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Passed unanimously. Mr. Treasurer?
Yes, and I had a couple questions, and maybe, Brianne, you can kind of throw this in, but in your treasurer's report, there's a total of $536,330.85, and there are 2 recent additions. And more, maybe it's a question to Brianne, alert to us how we want to do it. In this recent report, there was one for, I wanted to bring your attention to the Ford Associates Financial Advisory Services, and that was related to the financing for golf course. And the only, hesitancy was I asked for the contract, and thank you, Joanne, you were quick to give me a contract, and I wanted to be sure that you were satisfied with it.
I am. I also talked to Mr. Koski about that, and that was a requirement that the city had, that we had to have a person working for us as a
Financial advisor.
Yes, financial
Not
advisor.
working for the city, working for the organization.
Right. So I'm comfortable with that, Craig, that's
That was the first question. The second one was, is that there is so it's 3 questions. The second one is about the architects in Lamar. I know that we have an ongoing, little changes, but they do add up. And so as reviewing the bills, my question really was related to, this thing is done, isn't it? So it's like $8,000. Can we start slowing down some of the architectural oversight of this stuff or not?
We still have the maintenance building and the tennis, the Rapid Center building is about done, but they're still doing construction at tennis, and then the maintenance building is doing the tennis center.
Yeah, I talked to Art about that very thing, too,
Okay.
Craig. And he said that there were some changes that had to be made, that the city required for the architect to rework some components. I didn't see the bills until I got here this evening, but Art, I know that he hasn't signed off on them, but he just said that they're bona fide work that he had to do for changes that were required by the city to pass inspection.
Which makes sense, but in the bill, there was, the person who's doing the work was their intern, and so I'm sure that we've got the lower price for the intern and all that, but I guess I would like to kind of get a better idea, or I think we should have a better idea of what to expect going forward if there's a redesign of the maintenance facility. If there's additional work, just so we all know what we're approving.
Yeah, a lot of times, it moves forward without us knowing
Yeah.
about it.
Okay.
And then you get the sticker shock when you see the bills come in.
Yeah.
I mean, if you feel necessary to pull this, we can.
No, I don't. No,
Okay.
I believe in, I want, as I talked to Joanne, I looked at his approval for these things and,
Right.
and your involvement to,
Right.
we pay a bill.
Yeah, what I would suggest that Brianne is pass along to Mr. Moomaw that if at all possible, or when it's possible, to alert us to this ahead of time so that we can be aware that the change is coming, and so we don't see it first time on our treasurer's report.
So then that brought me to the last thing, and it's more of a procedural thing, trying to understand it. Throughout the Ocean Breeze, Boca National, of course, we are now receiving a lot of, I call them little bills, from all the different vendors that come in. And I just want to make sure I kind of understood what to expect in the long-term part of the process. And I realize, Art's not here, but maybe you could, if you have an insight, is that we selected Price Fazio team. They had their group of people underneath it. We approved the big contract with the Price Fazio team. It was all the support staff were kind of on an hourly basis. I think we all understood that. Now these bills are starting to come in on an hourly basis. So far they're very small. But I understand we will probably do an RFP, I guess, when we define everything. Do you have any perspective on it, or what should we put a cap on these guys, or what's going on?
Yeah, well, to help recall the discussion that we had, Price Fazio said that they preferred that their subs bill us and we pay them rather than pay them, and then they pay the subs. I seem to recall it. Anybody else remember that?
I agree with that.
Okay, and so that's what's coming in, and really don't know what these are except that they are contracted at their usual rate for doing these services. And one of them in particular, which was a flat fee, which was that CD Richard Ellis was on there for a consultant, a retainer advisor, and and that particular one I spoke to Art about that in light of the fact that we really haven't nailed down what we're going to do on the east side of the project, but we've seen some plans that did not include a hotel. And Art said, we advised the city that we were going to consider that from an income producing aspect, and that in order to determine whether or not a hotel is feasible or not, we wanted to retain C.B. Richard Ellis to do that. And I think Art mentioned that in one of our meetings that we needed to evaluate that. As far as the other costs, like the traffic study, I don't know, other than the fact that whatever we're going to be charged the usual rate that these professionals have, but
What kind of billing do they send us? I mean, do they send like a line item billing sheet of what we're
well,
paying
I
for?
don't think the one for 6,000 from C.B. Richard Ellis, I think they gave us an explanation and a flat fee for the retainer for the consultant fee. As far as the other, didn't we get some kind of documentation as to what the subcontractors were going to charge? There were some hourly costs associated with things like. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, they should be tracking what they're doing and sending us.
Oh, I'm sure when we get a bill from the land planner, the engineer at the project, there will be an itemized.
Wayne approves them and then sends them to all, but Wayne approves any of the subcontractors, invoices that come in, so he goes over them first and then sends them to all.
I can share with you that, I mean, some of them are detailed more than others. I guess what I'm trying to get to is well, where does this kind of go, and what's the next step? And I've kind of learned that we're expectation for the timeline of this whole thing. Obviously, we have to figure out what the cost is. So I thought they're all working on what their cost is going to be, and it's going to come to sometime in the next month or so a grand estimate of implementation. And then we would go to an RFP for actual construction, which I thought that's what we did when we first did this, but that's okay.
How about we do this, Brianne, how about having a conversation with Wayne and explain to him our question, that we would like to have a better idea and a breakout on the invoices and what we might expect from the traffic study from Charlie Putnam.
He will be here next meeting.
Would would it be okay with you, Mr. Chair, if I know he reached out to me to just talk about what, so maybe Brianne and I meet with them, and so all I'm trying to do is, okay, if Putnam is gonna, we expect him to be $10 less, you know, based on everything, just get a rough estimate so we kind of track along.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Everybody pretty much agree?
Okay.
The C.P. Richard Ellis, though, have we received anything for that?
Yes, there was I thought there was a statement in our packet from C.B. Richard Ellis, wasn't
I didn't see anything.
it? Maybe,
There's something from Ford.
The Ford is the,
no, I thought I saw a consulting agreement in there from C.B.
That was in, $6,000.
Was there a backup to that, Jillian? Yeah. And if there's not a backup, then we'll just pull it from
Are you looking for a report from them?
Yeah, I mean, did we receive anything for $6,000? Are we paying them for?
Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna look at that. All I know is that, you know, I talked to Art about it, he said it was a legitimate charge. I thought I saw a retainer on that, maybe I was wrong, maybe that was from the financial consultant.
So we're still thinking about?
I mean, I know, I personally asked Art, when he was talking about the hotel, get a third-party real estate expert to
Correct.
tell us the viability, so, but I never, he said he was working with C.B. Richard Ellis through Wayne, but never discussed
Yeah.
cost or price or anything.
Well, it's not gonna, if we don't have something, it's not going to delay, be a serious delay if we defer this until we have a backup statement for that. I don't think we want to approve anything unless there's a statement that shows what it's doing.
So, my goal with Brianne, when we meet with Wayne, is to kind of get a ballpark estimate, so I can kind of track the vendors and where they are on a year-to-date basis, each time we approve what's going on. Okay?
Absolutely, and if he could bullet point that for us, so we know what kind of to expect. And I don't need a deep guarantee, just some kind of a.
I'll do that.
Yeah. So,
That doesn't say that's what we're getting. I just don't know why we're paying $6,000.
well, it's like I told you, Craig mentioned it's for consulting to see if this is a hotel is a viable option on this property. If you're uncomfortable approving it until we have something from them that says that's what it's for, then we can certainly accommodate that.
There should be an agreement with it, though, is I think what you're looking for, and that I don't know.
Let's table it.
Okay.
We'll take that off the table and.
To the extent that Commissioner Ernst would like to have some fact-finding with the consultant, without objection from the board, without a delegation of the board's authority, we would simply give him the authority to have that conversation, to do some fact-finding, to come back and make a recommendation approach, as opposed to delegating the decision-making, which you're not doing, simply asking him to get some facts, derive some data, and then come back here with some recommendations. That's not a sunshine issue, it's just simply an individual commission doing some fact-finding. And absent any objections from the chair of the board, that's something that you could do in the next meeting, even if you table it out of the.
Yeah, well, I think that fact-finding is what, Craig is doing.
I'm only gonna get
Yeah.
I wanna get to an Excel schedule that when
Yeah.
we're gonna add to this, say, here's our golf project, it's progressing, and this is what was accomplished when someone sends us an invoice.
Yeah.
That'll be through Wayne, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then as far as, Sam, you don't have any problem with us removing this consulting agreement with C.B. Richard Ellis until we have a better explanation, and if there's a contractual agreement, that should.
Well, would you object to, I don't mind approving it, but leave it at your discretion if you want to, someone has to talk about the hotel. And I think that is the retainer they asked for, and I don't think it's an unreasonable retainer. I just don't know the agreement, and without Art being here, I'm not sure. But so, I would suggest that we approve it, and leave it to your discretion with conversations with Art and Wayne as they progress. I don't know that. What's your thoughts?
That's also a legal option that you could open the door for, so you don't depress payment or put it to the side at some future moment. You can approve it subject to further review and comfort on the chair's part,
Yes.
which are going to give the ability to have the check paid.
And the reason I want to do that is because I know the financing decision is tough, and this is a big component of it. And so to evaluate the hotel viability or not,
I'd rather you have that discretion.
Aaron, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I guess so. I just thought, from my discussions with Wayne, I didn't think that a hotel was even being considered anymore,
Well,
based on.
I think it's an option that has not been ruled out, as Craig said, and if we get an appraisal that comes in, a hotel estimate that says we can sell it for $12 million. I'm not saying that's the case, I'm just pulling this out, you know, it might be an attractive thing, but we need to know
Right.
whether that's a viable option and eliminate that from the discussion completely.
I wanna hear very firmly, whether if it's Wayne or CB Richard, whoever it is, why there's a hotel there now, and this property is very expensive, and so we're getting into a very expensive project. And without a hotel, if someone's willing to pay you for a hotel, we definitely should look at it.
Okay. All right, well, I'll accept Craig's suggestion, and we'll approve this subject to, and then I'll confirm these details with Art and with CB Richard Ellis, so that we have that zipped in pretty good.
With the parameters set forth by yourself and other boards.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
When I met with Wayne on Friday, I specifically asked him about the hotel, and he said it has not been ruled out, so.
So I'd like to make a motion for the invoices for all of them. I'm sorry, would you, Aaron, do you want?
Yeah.
Okay, $536,330.85.
Second.
So you do.
Yeah, you can have this one.
Any further discussion on that? So I'm clear, I'm going to, we're going to approve CB Richard Ellis. I'm going to confirm and receive the backup to this contractual nature, and so that we know.
Subject to your opinion.
Right, okay. Subject to my opinion.
No pressure.
No, okay.
It's just a retainer.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, passed unanimously. Thank you, Craig. Reports, Executive Director is Brianne, you're filling in for Mr. Kosky. Anything that you would like to add?
Nothing else to add.
Okay. Mr. Goring,
Nothing, I thank you for listening to my other comments, I appreciate it.
thank you, sir, for your sage advice this evening on various matters. Commissioners, Ms. Vogelzang?
I just want to encourage everyone to go over to Red Reef, where the conference is in the parking lot, to go see, God bless you, to see the Art in Public Places, how we started this project. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it's bringing a sense of community to that area. I was over there playing golf the other day, and we walked over to look at the paintings again, and there were people over there, and they were getting very engaged with all this, and it made them want to go over to Bembo Limbo, it made them want to come play golf, so I think it was a good investment for us.
Thank you, sir.
We have the deposits for furniture for the Swing and Racket Club. I'm just curious as to what progress there's been made as far as staff move-in. Is the staff moving in? If so, when? If they're not, why?
This district stuff?
Yeah.
Right now, it's housing the tennis center staff. We're waiting for construction to be complete at the tennis building for them to move back over. And at some point, I guess we would talk to the board about a timeline for us to move in, or how that building can be used, the upstairs.
So there's a question now as to whether you guys would be moving over there at all? Is that what I'm?
There has been some question about that, if it would be better utilized by other staff. There was issues at the Patrick Park Community Center building. I don't think that those issues are as outstanding as they were. But right now, it looks like the tennis center should be done by December, January-ish, more like January, February, and then we would look to start moving.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Aaron?
Just, I guess the city's installed I was running around the Spanish River Athletic Complex. They installed a new exercise, thing.
Fitness pad.
Yeah, fitness pad over there. I don't know if you've seen it, but it wasn't open yet. There's still fencing around. I was gonna sneak over and use it, but I didn't. But there's a shade structure, and it's right along the path there. It's really nice.
Yeah, something I want to bring back to the commission is that I was down in Weston field. And they have shade in the middle of the walkways in between fields. That they're canvas structures, they're awnings. You see them in all the Parks and Rec magazines. I'm not sure if they're made of nylon or something, but very functional. And if you go to Spanish River, there's no shade over there whatsoever. So you get behind one of the palm trees and stand like this. It is pretty warm. I think we missed the boat by not doing that in the beginning. But unlike Weston, where the fields are right adjacent to the sidewalks going this way, and the shade matched up perfectly where you could be in the shade throughout most of the day. The ones at Spanish River, there's two different pads where we have wide areas. I think it's only two where you have seating in there, but we probably need to consider putting some shade up for us older patrons whose skins are sensitive. But whether or not you are watching, it'd be difficult to watch some of the games the way the games are set up, but it's certainly be a nice, pleasant day. The wind is always blowing across that park. It's always under the pavilion. It's very, very nice. I go there for lunch some days and eat with the guys cutting grass because it is a nice, quiet place to be, and there's a nice breeze. But I'll bring that back after I talk to Melissa about some figures that we might need for that. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Aaron. Yeah, Craig?
Okay, so thanks for that.
Actually, I got 5 items, so I won't keep us long. I'll be real quick. One, I did go to the Art in Public Places unveiling. That was very nice, very well received. 2, my company I helped sponsor a cleanup at Spanish River Park, and so we had about 60 to 80 volunteers out there, and they're very well organized. They come from remote to do all the parks cleanup. I was very impressed with city staff and how they ran that, so that worked out well. 3rd, I went to the Monster Mash at Swim and Racket, which was, I got there late, but I did get to go see the facility a little bit, saw how nice it is. It's a very nice facility. It'll be fun to move into for the staff, and I think it's a great opportunity. And it put it better into perspective going over there for that splash pad and the discussion we had. So, and then the 4th item was Patch Reef Park. I was at the yard sale Saturday from 7 till 12:30, which Brianne helped me and the city staff were very good. We got one of the tables and stuff like that. Great experience. Not sure I'd do it again, but it was a great experience. So whole family did it. So then the last thing is Vision 2020. There's a group, Margaret Fitzsimmons, I think it is, has been very proactive on looking at how Silver Palm evolves and stuff. So I did go to one of their meetings, and then we followed it up last week, Friday, to go see the site of what's going on, how the interconnectivity. And I think the group has some really great ideas. It fits with EDSA, but one thing that the takeaway is EDSA is coming up with a very grand plan of things. The devil's kind of in the details. What do you really want? And I think Margaret and the volunteers are the ones that we want to support in evolving this thing. They have another meeting coming up. They did ask for restrooms, and I offered to help them find some cost for it, but I said the city staff should be able to do it. They know where those are. After seeing it, the Parks and Rec thing, restroom in a box, basically, you can buy prefab ones, would be very easy to do. So it's continuing, but that one doesn't involve us as a group, but I was very impressed with the volunteer base, which I think affects all of us.
Thank you, Greg. I have nothing else to add to this wonderful commission this evening. Enjoyable meeting, broke some new ground. I'd like to hear what the YMCA is proposing. I thought that was pretty interesting.